Okay, this is the third and final video presentation that I have. Um, so as I've been reading through the accounts of Jesus Christ and through his experience in Gethsemane and his crucifixion, and his atoning sacrifice, I think what I learned most about the Savior was just like his selfless desire to help other people. People that he never met, people that mistreated him, people that loved him, just so selflessly engaged in their lives and wanting to help them become perfect like him. And that's ultimately what it was for. And I think, he's always just such a good example of selfless sacrifice and helping people in that way. So I think that's probably the most important thing that I learned from him. But I think this experience, of course, was something super hard for him, even being a perfect man. I think we can see how hard this was for him when he says, Father, if there's any other way, let me do it that way. I don't want to do it this way. This way is so extremely difficult and so extremely painful. And then we also see how the angel comes down from heaven so that he can support Jesus, give him uplifting words. And I wish I could, hear maybe what the angel was saying. I can't even imagine like how inspiring that must have been to even inspire a perfect man going through the most difficult thing imaginable. As far as the disciples go, I still think that they truly didn't understand the scope of what Jesus was going through. And for myself too, I still can't fully comprehend the entirety of the atonement and all that does for us. But I think that was probably something that's really hard for Jesus, is that he was truly alone with this. Besides the angel, besides God, who were there to support him and, who had this knowledge. But these lifelong friends, these friends of 3 years that were with Jesus, didn't truly understand what he was having to go through and why it was so important. And of course, they were sad to lose Jesus because they needed him. They thought that they needed him at least. They didn't feel prepared enough for him to be gone, even if they weren't, entirely aware that he was going to be leaving them permanently. But I think what Gethsemane was meant to accomplish, this is kind of like the last thing that Jesus had before leaving the disciples and, kind of handing them the reins as far as proclaiming the gospel and spreading the truth and light to the world. So I think that was probably, part of the thing that Gethsemane was meant to accomplish was, well, besides the most important part of the sacrifice for us, so that we could be redeemed, in part was to fulfill prophecy that was made in the Old Testament, and to show that Christ was the Messiah and that he was the chosen Son of God to come to earth to live and to teach and to sacrifice himself and to overcome sin and death. But I think also in part, kind of like the last final message that Christ had, being martyred in a way, as proof that he was the Christ. I think not a lot of people saw his resurrected body, and that was probably for good reason. But the disciples saw it, and with that, they were able to go and preach and teach with a surety, a pure knowledge that he was resurrected. And so, as I was saying, the purpose of the atonement is for us to be resurrected and come back to live with Christ. I don't think I can truly understand the depth and scope of it all. To me, it has a personal meaning, just being able to overcome any previous sin that has been in my life and any future sin and any imperfection, any trial, any sorrow, any sadness, also to experience joy and great blessings and faith-building experiences. You know, everything is thanks to Jesus Christ and thanks to his sacrifice that he had. And anytime that I've gone through and read the Gospels and specifically focused on Christ's sacrifice and his crucifixion, his atoning sacrifice, I've always been left with a greater gratitude for what he did and for what I don't have to go through because of that. You know, I can never imagine what he did. I can never imagine that pain and suffering that he felt, but I'm thankful that he did it for me.